I just realized that some people only expect God in the supernatural or in the nick of time or just those rare occasions that you need God. And that sucks to me, right? Like, that's not a fun way to live life. That's not a fulfilling way to live life. Having God in the ordinary is the breath of life. It's the thing that raises the bar. And imagine if you only saw your parents on holidays or something, and that's the only time you get to see them, the only time you talk to them. Well, I mean, I guess for some people that's the dream, but what about like a spouse or something? Okay, look, imagine you're like 17, 16, like the idea of love is like, wow. And you are thinking to yourself, like, when I grow up, I'm gonna marry someone who loves me, who respects me, who takes care of me. And you're thinking like, I'm gonna have that, and I'm gonna spend every second with them because I love them and this and that. Well, I mean, first of all, putting that weight on a human being is never good. Okay, I'm living proof of that. That just happened. That was a season of my marriage that I am crawling out of, which is that false idea that you have to do everything together or this and that. And it's not maybe even that you have to. It's that at one point you wanted to, and you just can't keep that up. It's just really hard, especially if, because you're two individuals and you're two people that want to fulfill the things in your life. And if you bring that person along to everything you want to do, well, that person doesn't get to do what they want to do with their life, right? If they're, in tune with your schedule and they're doing everything with you, then they are basically a second you, and there's no other person that's like you, and vice versa. And so that's the tension that was going on, was that my wife falling into my schedule, going to the gym as much as I did and doing all these things as much as I did or whatever. And she didn't like it at all. And so then we gravitated going into her direction. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is frustrating for me because she's, a homebody, and that's totally fine. And I was like, I need to see human beings, or I needed to be completely alone. And there just wasn't that time. When I say human beings, like other human beings, like people that, like some people, I talk philosophy with, other people I talk sports with, other people we just joke around a lot and this and that. And it's like just the different personalities that people have. Like I was missing that. And so no offense to my wife, it's just that need to express all of myself, and I couldn't. Not that I couldn't, it's just that's not the desire of the other person. And I was talking about this with my therapist. There's a difference between not telling someone something because they're not interested in it, and not telling someone something because you're scared of telling them, right? Those are two different things. You should never be scared of telling your wife anything. But if they're not interested in like sports or something, like keep it at a minimum. Save it for the guy who, that you actually enjoy talking sports with, but have that time, right? And then alone time, like I just need to be alone with my thoughts and not have, and I'm guilty of this, of always like, if it's silent, be like, hey, what are you thinking about? And then that just breaks the thought. I'm so bad at that. I do that so much. But sometimes it's just having that space completely alone is good. And so for me, that time is mostly now at the gym, because my schedule, again, is hectic. And the mornings. Yeah, basically my mornings. And I think it's working. I'm enjoying this. And so when I get home, at least I'm enjoying, like, my schedule sucks, don't get me wrong, but like I'm finding the silver lining, and I try to do this. I'm very intentional about finding silver linings about things. And so I find that these mornings is what I got, because I come home and Izzy's already settled in, and she's already, like
waiting for me, basically. Like, she has all her stuff done, and she's just like, watching her things or whatever, and then I get home, and she's like, all right, cool, what are we doing? And as tough as my days are lately, because I've been in a training thing, I guess long story short, I got laid off, but then immediately got rehired for a different position, and so I'm training for that position, and that position's kind of tough. I guess there's like a learning curve, and it's just stressful, and so I get home, and all I want to do is hug her and veggie out, so it works out. But going back, regular worship, so, whoa, sorry guys. Okay, regular worship. So imagine, but that kind of consistency, or wanting that consistency of, I want to hang out with you every second of my life, that love wasn't meant to be put on a human being. It was meant to put at the altar, at the feet of God, and say, God, I want to spend every moment with you. And I think, to me, it's like, if without God, it's like seeing the world in gray scale. He's the color of life. He adds that vibrancy to it. And this idea of regular worship, living a natural life with God kind of deal, where he's in the day-to-day, the mundane, being with God in the mundane, it doesn't. So I thought that it was like when I first heard of this idea, or really, okay, so this thing happens where, like, I end up doing things before I hear about it kind of deal, or like I think of something, I don't know there's a name for it, and then someone says, oh, that reminds me of this, and then I go look it up, and I'm like, that's exactly what that is. I'm an idiot. I should read more. But this is one of those things where I evolved from thinking God works like these big miracles in my life, and if I were to regularly pursue him and feel his presence and this and that, then those big moments won't feel that big. But it's not necessarily true. So regular worship just kind of looks like, again, it's that vibrancy in everyday life. And then when the fireworks do go off, they go off and you enjoy them. Like, I only see fireworks maybe 3 times a year, right? And so if that's the only time I ever get to see color, yeah, sure, it'll be mind-blowing and this and that. But it's almost like, would you rather have a neglectful father that gives you presents 3 times a year, or would you rather spend time, like, have a healthy relationship with your father? And maybe some of y'all can't imagine that. Let me define that. You have someone who respects your individuality, someone who takes an interest in your life, someone who shows that he cares and loves you. Through those first 2 things, I guess caring and loving, again, is, what does that look like? So he shows an interest, but he's not controlling. So you have boundaries. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's more to it, but I think that's like baseline for a parent. Anyways, would you rather have him in your life, your entire life, and he still gives you those 3 presents or whatever, or still does those 3 big acts, or constantly affirms you whenever you need it, and this and that? Like, it's just this thing about relationships. Like, a good relationship, you don't, like, why would you want that? Only in rare occasions, right? And so regular worship looks like spending time with him, feeling his presence, like being in the middle of it all. And I almost feel like it makes the miracles better. And I'll tell you why. It feels better because instead of it being some kind of surprise and being like, wow, you really outdone yourself, this is what I knew you were capable of. Because he's like, I think by definition, miracles happen when the natural can't happen. And that's why miracles are such a unique thing, is because people have explained their miracles to me. I'm like, that is a good thing God did. But that, to me, that's not impossible. Like, God did the possible, Like, you could have done this and that, and it worked out. In my life, the miracles that I've seen, other people might say, hey, that's completely possible. But it wasn't possible for me. And I think that's me. Well, because my most recent miracle, basically, Izzy didn't have a job, and I had my job. And then in the span of 2 days, she got a job, I got fired, and I got rehired, or I got hired for another position. And our lease is coming up, is ending, and we have to get out of here kind of deal. And everything was just, there's so much pressure on my back. And God pulled through, and I felt like that was a miracle. Now, will other people say, man, did you try the job search and da-da-da? She definitely has, right? She's been looking for a job for a bit now, and she's applied to literally everything that's a livable wage kind of deal. This is another sidebar again, sorry, but the job market seems very, very bountiful, but no one's actually hiring. And I think there's like trauma in the workforce of we don't want to hire too much because then we're going to have to lay a bunch of people off again. It's just balancing out. People are trying to trust again in people, and it's just a whole thing.
Point being, to me, that was a miracle. And I was going through all of this. I was doubting God. And then after it happened, I was like, I felt embarrassed and ashamed of like why I didn't trust in him. And I'm like, I can't doubt you. Like, why did I doubt you? Like in providing for me, And I'll tell you why. Because as of late, because of all this craziness, because of all the adjustments, I haven't made time for God. And so I forgot that that's exactly who God is. And if I was in tune with him, I would have just prayed harder. I would have casted my anxieties on him. This would have happened. And I said, see, I knew you would have pulled through. And that creates more intimacy. And that creates more relationship. And that creates everything that bonds two beings together. That's what that does. That's what miracles do when it happens. But it doesn't have to take that for that to happen, because without the regular worship, without worshiping in the mundane, without having a mundane spiritual life in that way of every day, talking to God, praying, reading the Bible, being with God, if you're not doing that on the daily, then what happens is that's just a surprise and you don't know what to do with it. But if you're in the mundane, then that is something that you're experiencing with them as an intimate act, as a thing that, oh, I know this is who you are. And you pull through again, and it creates more dialogue in your relationship. It turns into worship. But when God just out of the blue does a miracle you don't have that relationship, then it's like finding $100 on the ground. It's a happy thing, but that's all it is. What I'm trying to encourage is that regular worship, that building of relationship. The only way I could describe it is like he's the vibrancy of life. He gives the color. He adds extra flavor. He's the spice of life. He just elevates things and dampens the blows, I feel like. Like there's so many times in my life where, my prayer life was very strong and bad things would happen and I would just push through them like I was some KGB agent. Sorry, I had a flashback. I saw this documentary. They learn how to take blows and they don't feel pain or something. It was insane. But my point is, you just go through life taking the blows hurt less because you have shield, you have your armor, right? You have the armor of God. You're wearing the shoes of peace. You're wearing the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith. And so so all the bad things that hate you, well, if you're always wearing your armor, you're never going to get hurt as bad. You always have your protection. But on the other end, it's like the good things feel better because you know that they come from God, that's conscious in your brain. I just encourage regular worship, constant worship. Paul talks about don't stop praying, don't stop interceding, always be in prayer, always be connected to God, always be abiding, as Jesus says. Abide in me. You can't be on and off. It's like having bad cell phone reception. You don't want that. You want LG, you know. You want to have that connection and constant connection. You want that reliable connection. I'll leave you guys with that. I hope that was food for thought. Think about it. Pray about it. Be the change you want in the world. That's Gandhi. All right, anyways, bye.